G'day, this is Peter Anthony with module number 4 on storytelling for marketers in your role as the CEO or Chief Emotional Officer in your organisation, really as that brand custodian. And today we're talking about how to use stories to connect, and this is using storytelling elements to add a lot more connection into any communication you might have and add a lot more emotional engagement. So when you think about emotional engagement, you think, well, one of the first ways I can use more emotional engagement is to think about starting my story or starting my communications from where they are, to build more rapport with them, to connect with them at that level. So I might begin my story where they are in their understanding, and that might even mean pacing out any objections they might have by saying something like, look, I know many of you could be confused as to why we're doing this with the brand, and that's why I'm talking to you today. Or you might say, look, many of you might be thinking, I wonder why this category is shrinking. I wonder why we're not doing more with this product, more with this brand, and that's why this session is important for you. So you're really connecting with them where they are, particularly if they've got any objections or any issues with what it is that you might be discussing. And that's one way to build some connection. A second way to build connection is to use metaphors. Metaphors are a beautiful way to be remembered and to really build some imagery into what you're saying. I was working with a senior executive recently on a major presentation he was giving, and I said, he was talking about how big the competitor was, because his organisation was quite small and the competitor was an enormous multinational. And we talked about metaphors, and the one we arrived at was, we said, many of you are thinking what we're doing now is like running out of a trench with a water pistol, and the crowd loved it. They thought it was funny. Then we thought, let's look at turning that water pistol into a bazooka so we can really blow these guys away. And that metaphor worked well. The pistol to the bazooka. So you can think about using metaphors. You can also think about future pacing. That's future pacing as a way of building more engagement. And what you're doing here is you're asking the audience to imagine a future that's different than what it is now. And again, think about that future as being in detail, and one that's desirable in terms of something I really want to realise, an opportunity, or something where a pain or problem has been taken away. Another way to increase engagement with an audience and increase connection is to really follow a good structure. Follow that story structure we've talked about earlier and keep them on track. So you're constantly keeping them in the loop. You're not taking them where you want them to go. It's more a matter of taking them on the journey that's most useful for them. Another way, you could be thinking about another way to increase engagement and connection, and I've just used an example of that, which is to really ask open rhetorical questions, or ask the questions you think they could be asking at that stage and then answering it. So you're setting up a conversation where you're anticipating what they're thinking or the question they could be asking, and then answering them as you move forward. Another way of keeping them engaged, keeping them connected, is keeping it relevant to them. So it's always about them, never about you. One of the things I really hate hearing when I hear people tell stories is beginning by saying, the reason I'm here is, or what I'd like to tell you is, well, that's more about you. It's not really about them. So keep it about them, keep it relevant for them, and keep it compelling from beginning to end. And of course, finally, end with a simple, single-minded conclusion or next step, so that there's one main thing the story is about, and there's something that they know what to do with at the end of the story. So that also keeps that connection high. So there's some ideas on how to tell stories, or how to use storytelling elements to increase engagement and increase connection. Next, we'll be talking about how to have the courage to tell more stories. Until then, this is Peter Anthony saying bye for now, and tell more stories.